it says go live, and here we are, 7 p.m. in state-controlled Britain. Here we have the wonderful UK's top nutritionist, Richard Smith. Hi, Richard.
Hello. Are
Hello.
you, Stephen?
I'm very well. I'm very impressed with what you've been doing today. So what have you been doing?
Today, I ran the Cardiff Half Marathon. On very little training. I wasn't entered to race, and I did something that I shouldn't have done, really. But somebody else couldn't make it, so I took their place. Now, you're not allowed to do that, by the way, so don't go telling anyone. So I've last minute, with no prep, I decided to run the Cardiff Half. So that's what I've been doing today. What about you?
Brilliant. Well, I've been working on a new background for the live, updating the photos in the top there. And just generally been very busy. It was Jane's birthday weekend as well. Very exciting news about the documentary film. Seems to be going further and further. We're getting to contract time and all that sort of stuff. So
brilliant.
For those that are not aware, we're trying to do a carnivore documentary and looking to get it onto some of the bigger platforms, looking for funding and all that sort of stuff and interviews. Interestingly, if you know anyone that is thinking of going carnivore and they're currently vegan, vegetarian, standard American diet, and they would like to be featured, we're so confident we can take a couple of people on to be part of the film, and we can map their journey as the film is being put together. So that's fine. Should we get straight to the questions?
Let's go for it.
Well, actually, let's do the housekeeping bit. Ribeye Rob is saying, smash the like button, folks, and thank you for the super chat. So just to remind you, if you put a Q in front of your question, we will see it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, which will really help us. Super chat, support our work, and move your question comment ahead of the queue. But please be patient, because Richard, as you know, top guy, he likes to answer the questions frankly and fully. So we do that all the time, and it really helps if you could put the queue in front, like Matthew has. And his first question is, if you have low folate on carnivore, will your homocysteine go up? Got tested 7 months. Carnivore folate went from 13% to under 2. Homocysteine was high, 15.8. But that was the first test ever. I mean, yes, folate is vitamin B9, and homocysteine is an amino acid in the blood. And yes, you need folate. It's a cofactor in the sort of breakdown of homocysteine into methionine, which I think Richard will explain in a minute, because he loves the science. But yes, if you've got low folate, then you might find the conversion of homocysteine to methionine reduced slightly. But you've got to look at everything as a whole, not just those two numbers. And you can also have a look at things like B12 and B6 are also cofactors in all of this. But I don't necessarily think numbers are the best way to go. It's how you look, feel, how you're sleeping, what your energy levels are, your muscle mass, virtually everything that we can think about to do with health is really important. But there's a lot of folate in eggs, so you shouldn't be low. Anyway, what do you think, Rich? Sorry.
I completely agree. It's, I think we shouldn't let the results wag the dog, as they say. Don't let the tail wag the dog. And I think we quite often get caught up in levels and readings, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. How do you feel? So that's the question that I put to Matthew. If you feel fantastic, then does it really matter? The other thing to take into account is these ranges are done on an average person. The average person is not well. So that's where I bounce back. But coming on from that, you're completely right. The MTHFR enzyme and methylfolate, or B9 and B12 and B6, make methylfolate, which break down homocysteine, creating methionine, which goes on to create something else called SAMe, which is S-adenosylmethionine, and that's responsible for lots of things within the body. It tackles inflammation, detoxes, makes neurotransmitters, and so on and so forth. So this process is incredibly important. One of the things that I find sometimes is that with the carnivore lifestyle, we tend to avoid maybe eggs and other sources of folate. So that could be a problem. Maybe, as you say, lack of eggs. Eggs are a fantastic source of folate. Now, there are other things as well. Now, if did he say that's the first time he's been tested? But that was,
Yeah, I
well,
think it was. Yeah.
okay. So look, he could have an MTHFR defect, and this can quite often be remedied with riboflavin or vitamin B2, which is found predominantly in organ meats, particularly beef liver. So what I would suggest is, but you need a lot. So it's supplementation. I'm not a big fan of. I make supplements, so I'm a fan of supplements. But it's diet should always come first. Real nutrition first. So what I would suggest is to put some beef liver in once every 2 days, or smaller piece every day, or lamb liver, for example. Or any other organ meat that you can find is a good source of vitamin B2. Now, we need between 2 to 3 milligrams per day. And if you were living carnivore just on beef and salt, then you were only achieving around 0.2 to 0.3. So 10 times lower riboflavin than you would if you were consuming organ meats. So consider organ meats. If you don't want to, consider supplementing with desiccant organ meats. If you don't want to do that, then maybe look at supplementing with vitamin B2. Just make sure that it is an active version and highly bioavailable and organic. Beyond that, I think come back to the original question. So Matthew, if you can, let us know how you feel.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to really drum this into people, because obviously I see this all the time, having spent 10 years with private lab testing, and also, now I get people sending me labs, and I always ask them, how do they feel? And more often than not, they say, well, I feel really great. I feel really, really good. But they're still worried, even though there's nothing to be worried about, basically. So, right, the next question. I'm just getting a screen share up, ready for the next question. So, Ribeye Rob, thank you, by the way, for the super chat. That was really good. This is another one. Bart K has said humans can live to 120, 150 years based on telomeres, etc. Believe him, but where can I find this research? Do you all agree? Did humans of the past ever live this long on a natural carne diet? Yes. There are many people that live beyond 100. Even on a bad diet. And it's one of those things where people that want to justify smoking and drinking say, oh, my granddad lived to 105 and he had a cigarette and he had a drink every day, and it was always down the chip shop. So with that said, I mean, that just shows that humans can live beyond 100. The Blue Zones claimed it, but a lot of those people didn't have birth certificates and stuff like that. I'm doing a very quick share for that question. I think I've got it here. I've also put it in the chat for people that want to see it. The relationship between peripheral blood mononuclear cells, telomere length, and diet. Unexpected. This is why I wanted to screen share. Unexpected effect of red meat. So this shows you that they looked at 9 types of food: cereals, fruits, vegetables, dairy, red meat, poultry, fish, sweets, and salty snacks. And 8 beverages as well. Only the intake of red meat was related to the TS ratio, which meant basically that the telomere length was longer. And they said unexpected correlation of telomere length with the frequency of consumption of red meat indicates the need for further in-depth research and may undermine some accepted concepts of adverse effects. So that's what we're fighting. Even when they find the results, it's always framed in this way. It's unexpected. We've got to do it again because surely this can't be the right result. And of course, there is another study in that PDF. If you want the other PDF, it's also about the study found there was no significant association between beef consumption and telomere length, as in it suggests that beef does not damage them. See, so even that study was reluctant to say it was the best performing. They just said, well, it didn't seem to damage them. So that's what we're fighting. Can we live to 120? Can we live to 150? I think it's possible, but I think you've got to be on a really good diet from the get-go. So I wasn't. My parents really believed all the food guidelines, and I definitely suffered for that. And I didn't really get on a good diet until I was 50 when I went low carb. I'm 60 now. And well, I don't know how long I'm going to live, but a lot of damage was done. My coronary artery calcium scan was 639. I was pre-diabetic, lower left quadrant pain, perpetual athlete's foot, skin issues, and all that sort of stuff. And in the last 10 years, none of that. it's all gone. So I think you can reverse it, but I wish I'd done it sooner. What about you, Richard?
Yeah, I completely agree. I've seen research to suggest 120, and again, as you say, there are peoples on the planet who do live this long. Look, when we compare it to what did it say? Did humans in the past? Look, it's what we need to remember also is when people were living an evolutionary appropriate diet during the Paleolithic period and so on and so forth, they didn't have warm houses with central heating and brick walls to keep, the lions and the bears and whatever else away. We were open, exposed to the elements, no antibiotics, no medication. So when we look at the average lifespan for a person through the Paleolithic period, now if you were to Google this, it's incredibly low. Now what they don't factor in is the average lifespan beyond infancy. So when you take away all of the carcasses that didn't make, beyond 3, for example, the average lifespan is actually more comparable to today, and it's around 70 to 80, which, yes, we all know people who live older than this, but you've got to remember also, again, coming back to the point I just made, we were open to the elements. We were hunted by other animals. We had to hunt our food, and food wasn't always available. So there's a lot of contributing factors, and again, the antibiotics and medication. If it wasn't for medication and antibiotics during my life, I would be dead. And I know that for a fact, and probably 3 times over. So when we factor that in, it becomes apparent that actually the lifestyle that we were living during the Paleolithic period is far superior to a standard diet as we know it today. When I was sick, by the way, and had to take medication and antibiotics, this was before I became ketogenic and carnivore. So I think there's a lot to be said. Does that mean that I never become ill? Of course it doesn't. I get ill. I still become ill. I can usually tell by my Garmin, which I don't wear anymore because of the Bluetooth, but that's a talk for another day. What I noticed was when I was a little bit poorly, my heart rate, my resting heart rate would increase to the point that I wouldn't notice that I was unwell. But I could see that everything that I was doing, every effort that I put out in regards to training, running, and cycling, my heart rate was greatly increased, which means my body was busy, fighting off something that it didn't even tell me that it was fighting, which is fantastic. I still get a runny nose. I still get a cold now and again, and it, contrary to popular belief, it's actually beneficial to come down with colds because this tests our immune system. So these are things that, and I don't know about you, Steve, but quite often, if I am poorly or under the weather and someone from outside of the community sees this, see, it's because you're carnivore or you don't eat your vegetables. But I haven't been ill for the last 5 years. And the one day that I'm a little bit unwell, it's always because of that. But I know that I would be considerably more unwell if it wasn't for living this lifestyle. And the other thing to factor in for me personally, I work 7 days a week. It's 6 days of which I work incredibly long hours. Today, yes, I've had a day off. I've been running, which is a big stress on the body. But again, I've chosen to do that. But now I'm in the office. I've come into the office in order to speak to you fine people, which I thoroughly enjoy. And, I wouldn't change for the world. But it does mean that you can't just put your feet up on the sofa and chuck Netflix on and zone out. And this is my life day in, day out. So I quite literally work 7 days a week. And I can promise you, I was never able to do this before I became ketogenic and carnivore. So sorry, apologies, a bit of a round the house answer in regards to that. But yes, I do believe I've seen research myself to say 120. I haven't seen the research for 150, but if Bart Kay says that's the figure that he's come to during the research, then I have no reason to question that. Bart is incredibly thorough. Who knows? Maybe we'll reach 120, Steve.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, the numbers are really vast. If you look at the estimates, this is as recent as 2024. There's over 15,120 people over 100 just in England and Wales, which has doubled. The centurion population has doubled since 2002. So that's amazing, really. And if you look at what we've got in the US now, the US, and this shows about lifestyle, I think, and other factors, their population over 100 is only 89,739, which is obviously more than what we just said in England. But they spend more on healthcare than anywhere else. Now, I'm not going to get political, but you would imagine with all this wonderful money being spent on healthcare that you would have more people living over 100. But I'm being facetious here, because they're not spending money on the right things, which is proper nutritional advice, and they're buying into the World Hoax Organization and the CDC and all those people, and they're not looking at lifestyle and diet. They're looking at pharmaceutical solutions to everything. Japan is currently reported to have the highest number of centurions, both in total and per capita. So there you go. And centenarians, yes. What did I say?
Centurions. Now, I made the same mistake during a recording that I did, and everybody picked me up on it. Man, it's
yes, sorry,
I knew what I meant.
Yeah, I knew what I meant as well. The term decimated comes from centurions, actually, because what would happen when the Romans went to battle, they would have, let's say they had a unit of 100 soldiers, they would decimate them. If they lost, they would kill 1 in 10. As a punishment for losing the battle. That's where decimate comes from. Anyway, right. But thank you for correcting me. That's all right, Richard. I love it. You know what? The other night, I did a live stream with Dr. Abs, and nobody told me I had like a black mark or something up here. The whole time, I don't know what it was. Maybe I had smudged my mascara or something. I had no idea what it is. We have got a real fire, so maybe, I did the fire and then just sort of scratched my eye. Great big black mark here, and I thought, I'm not putting that out because people will say, well, what's that? Anyway, right. Anthony Chafee says the same thing about 120. I know, I've actually interviewed him on this particular subject. He said that if you ask any geneticist, they would say our cells are designed to live that long. I think that's very true. Really great questions. Keep them coming in. Don't forget, put a queue in front if you want to get them spotted, and a super chat will always make you jump the queue, which is great. This is from Family. Been using iodine on my skin on Carnivore. Seems effective. Opinion on other vitamins, minerals. Can I put methylfolate on the skin? Maybe small amounts of vitamin C or calcium or boron, so you don't get the stomach trouble. What do you think, Richard?
Coming down to the iodine on my skin, it seems effective. Look, if it's working for you, the absorption, I'm guessing Steve's going to know a lot more about this. I'm assuming isn't as effective as consumption, but if it's working, fantastic. Other vitamins and minerals, everything that we need, not just to survive but thrive, is quite literally found in animal proteins. Every single vitamin. I won't bore you guys with them now. You've probably heard me mention them many times previously. Unless you want me to, Steve, we can go through each one of them if you want. But everything, I promise, is found in far higher quantities in animal proteins comparative to fruits and vegetables. There's quite literally nothing that we need from fruits and veg. Now, the one that does come back, which you've mentioned there, vitamin C. Vitamin C is actually found in certain animal proteins, contrary to popular belief. And the interesting thing with vitamin C is that it is absorbed through 2 different transporters, and more, but primarily through one in particular. And it's the GLUT4 transporter. The GLUT4 transporter is a transporter that is shared with the transportation of glucose. So when we live a low-carb, ketogenic, or carnivore-based lifestyle, there is less competition fighting for access to that cell. Therefore, our requirement for vitamin C becomes a lot lower. I haven't taken vitamin C or consumed fruit for many years, and I'm still yet to suffer with scurvy. In fact, I've never known a carnivore to suffer with scurvy. So, we don't need excessive amounts of vitamin C. We're told vitamin C is an antioxidant. But even if that is true, we don't need an awful lot. And excessive amounts of vitamin C can cause oxalate problems. That can convert into oxalates within the body and cause issues. Calcium, I'm not a big fan of calcium supplementation unless you have low calcium, and it's leading to issues. Calcium is found in abundance in animal proteins, and it is one of 6 elements that is found in 99% of every cell in the human body. So we do need it. It's essential. But the amount that is actually found within the cell is incredibly low. And if we look at animal proteins, beef and lamb, for example, or any animal protein, they carry a similar ratio through across the board. If we were to look at the electrolytes in there, or the minerals, potassium predominates, then it drops right down. This is about 4 times higher than sodium. It drops right down to sodium, and then it drops right down then to magnesium usually, and thereabouts is calcium. So calcium and magnesium should be consumed in roughly, and it is rough, it's slightly different, but it's roughly a 1-to-1 ratio. So when we're looking at absorptions and the amounts of calcium and magnesium found in foods and supplements, that's the type of ratio that we want to be looking for. Now, if the animal proteins tell us that this is what we need, we shouldn't really be going against nature. Nature knows best, and I don't believe we should be supplementing with calcium. Excessive amounts of calcium can cause problems. Again, you can offset this with K2, but the fact is we don't need an awful lot of calcium. It's found in everything that we need. And calcium is abundant on a carnivore lifestyle. Now, beyond things like beef and lamb, there are 2 things that contain high levels of calcium. An egg, which is something that gives life, and milk, which is something that feeds new life. So, the thing behind this is that when life is given, we need calcium to help rapidly build the skeletal frame, and so on and so forth, and everything else within the body. And then this new life drinks the mother's breast milk, which further fuels this growth. But we're not designed to consume milk beyond infancy, let alone from another animal. So that may upset a few people who are milk drinkers. I'm not telling you need to stop drinking milk. I'm just giving you the information. We're not designed to drink milk, even A2. So it's, yes, you can do these things in moderation. You can do anything in moderation. You could go out and eat, a pizza or a burger or whatever, and your body is still going to combat this, but it doesn't mean that we should be doing them. So I'm not a lover of calcium supplementation for that reason. Beyond that, boron, do we find it in high quantities in nature? Yes, we need it, but I mean, it's in tiny amounts, and I believe that's all we need. I don't believe that we need to supplement with boron if we are living a carnivore-based lifestyle. So yeah, I mean that's the short version, Steve. But I make supplements, but in regards to vitamins and minerals, I'm not a fan of supplementation. And the reason being, it's when we look at vitamins and minerals in supplement form, they're not in human form. And I will go into this a little bit briefly just to explain what I mean. Vitamin A, for example, in supplement form is not vitamin A. True vitamin A, which is found in animal proteins, is retinol. And the vitamin A found in supplementation is beta-carotene. Now, beta-carotene needs to be acted upon by an enzyme called BCMO in order to convert it into the active form of retinol. And in order to do this, it's depleted by over 20 times, making the amount that's actually absorbed close to zero. When we look at things like iron, for example, iron in supplement form is mined from the ground. This is very different from the iron that you get from animal proteins, and it will cause oxidative stress and damage to the cells. Now, even if those vitamins were all in there in the right form, they're in a little capsule which hits the digestive system, and your body just goes haywire because all of these things are released, and then they start to try to compete for absorption. Lots of these vitamins and minerals compete for absorption. Now, this doesn't happen when we consume animal proteins. This is why you hear people mention about animal proteins being 100% bioavailable. It's because animal proteins, meats, for example, will go through the digestive process, and these vitamins and minerals will be absorbed at different points through the digestive process, whereas a vitamin, bang, as soon as it hits the stomach and then it starts to break down, all of these things are competing. So what actually is in there, very little is being absorbed. And we see this with iron supplements, for example, because it changes the color of what comes out. And quite often when we take an iron supplement, it turns the feces green, which means that most of it is not being absorbed. Now, you don't get green poo when you eat animal proteins. So absolutely counterintuitive. But just my thoughts. Have you got anything to add, Steve?
Well, no, I was just thinking we've gone a little bit away from the question, but I think it's great that you've done that, because it is still supplementation we're talking about, but it's just a different method, rubbing it on the skin rather than ingesting it and then digesting it, so you avoid any stomach trouble. So I think it's a really good question. I suppose to be a very broad answer, and it'd be great actually to have Abs here. Dr. Abs, we both got abs, by the way, but well, everyone's got abs. Things like vitamin C are used on the skin to apparently, reduce wrinkles and stuff like that. When I was very stressed and I lost both my parents and a girlfriend for breast cancer, I got very wrinkly when I was in my 20s, and I had vitamin A, retinol A, as a private prescription, which my doctor said I deserved because I did look old before my time, and that definitely reduced my wrinkles. So these are sort of superficial cosmetic changes, which now I wouldn't need to do as a carnivore, because which is exactly what Richard was saying, because I think you don't need these supplements so much when you've got the full nutrient sort of range coming in. But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, things like vitamin C is a common thing that people do rub on the skin. Iodine is another thing. If it works, again, as Richard said, that's great. Vitamin E is another one. It's in moisturizing and sort of that creams and stuff like that, allegedly antioxidant, and B3, which is sort of anti-inflammatory. But I'm with Richard. Sorry, I just feel this way of eating. You probably don't need to do that, but I certainly understand anything that stops it hitting the stomach is a good idea. If you try and it works, more power to your elbow. I just want to show this. This isn't a question, but it made me laugh. Oak Hearts. I think I have a man crush on Richard. He's so knowledgeable.
Hey, I'll take it. Thank you.
Yes, we will take any.
I don't get many compliments these days, so thank you.
Yeah, we'll have it definitely. Let's go for the next one, which is an interesting question from Matt Taylor. On carnivore for 9 months, no diabetes, using a continual glucose monitor, saying my blood sugar has been in the 40s and 50s at night, even had me as low as 39. Not sure how accurate it is. Assuming no problem. Has anyone else seen this? No symptoms? Yes, definitely seen this. Nighttime, you can expect your blood glucose to go down because you're asleep and everything is being down regulated. I would be more worried if it was high, to be honest, than low. If you're waking up, you're not dizzy, you've not got headaches, even just lying on the continual glucose monitor, as in resting on it, can make a big difference. I don't think it's a problem, as you've got no symptoms, you're not having any issues whatsoever. And of course, obviously, if you've got a CGM, you're seeing what happens in the morning. So the dawn phenomena then kicks in. You have that deep sleep. Then it kicks in, gets you up. And the most common thing I have people talking about is actually it's higher in the morning than I was expecting. And that comes from, I mean, I haven't been doing it as long really as some people, but 15 years ago when I started working in diabetes and obesity, the myth was still, this was before all the monitors, diabetics, type 2 diabetics, which is like 90% of the people you see, must have some food immediately on waking because their blood sugar is going to be so low, which of course that's absolute, the complete 180 of what the truth is, and it tends to be really high. So for me, Matt, I think that's okay, especially as you put, there's no symptoms. You're just asking a question. Yes, I do see it, and I get at least one a month where people are worried about that low thing, but at least one a week worried about it being slightly higher than they was expecting. Anything to add, Richard?
No, I think you've covered it. It's the thing is, there's no problems. If they were, I'd say that we can delve into things. One of the things could be damage to the diurnal rhythm, which is based on cortisol, but no problems. So let's move on.
Yes. Well, there's a book recommendation is the next question. Right now, it's one of the things I'm considering in our school group is book recommendations, because we get this a lot. Anyway, Matthew's asking, any recommendations on best books for learning about human biology, human anthropology? Right. The first thing I'm going to say is many of the books will get it wildly wrong. I'm sorry, but they will, because they write based on myths and poor research techniques, which both Richard and I have mentioned before. I can give you a list. I think one of the gateways is a book I was just looking at there called Fingerprints of the Gods by Graham Hancock. And that actually will get you into archaeology and the myths surrounding archaeology. Once you realize that a lot of what you've been told about the development of the human race across the globe, which Graham Hancock does exceptionally well, you'll realize that the books that are out there, you need to read with a mind that maybe this isn't particularly true. I prefer medical textbooks. So over there, I've got Guyton's medical textbook. I've got a book about biochemistry, which is just simply called Biochemistry. And you want to get books before pharmaceutical companies started to sponsor them. So Guyton's medical textbook is very good. If you're interested in diabetes, then Jocelyn's Diabetes Mellitus is very good. Now, Kindred is a good book. Neanderthal Life by Rebecca Ragg Sykes is quite a good book. So there you go. I have no particular ones to recommend other than that. What do you think of anything you want to add, Richard?
Yeah, there's none I can think of. I mean, I've studied biochemistry. I have biology on the list to study, but these are courses that that I qualify in. But even that said, what I have noticed is that you're right. Half of the information is right, and then the other half goes on to say how fantastic that fruits and vegetables and grains are, and that's where they lose me. So it's I use these things to study, to learn the pieces of information that I'm not aware of, and try to broaden my understanding of how the human body works. But yeah, it's I can't think of any off the top of my head. But yes, let's do that. Let's put that into school and make a book recommendation page.
Yeah, I think we're going to do that. That's great. So that's happening live. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us on the channel. Recently, I had YouTube apologize to me because someone had flagged my YouTube channel as spam. And what was the other thing they said? One other thing. Anyway, and they removed videos accidentally. They apologized and said it was completely wrong. So what was it? I can't remember the other phrase they used, but it made me laugh. Anyway, here we go. Let's go to the next question. Hope that was all right, Matthew. Can a slight runny nose after eating beef indicate a histamine intolerance? What are other symptoms of histamine? And is there any harm to overall health adapting to carnivore?
Other symptoms... yeah, lots of things. There's usually issues with breathing, as you say, which come hand in hand with like a runny or stuffy nose. Sometimes nausea, abdominal pain, diarrhea, lots of things, headaches, migraines, so on and so forth. Now, the thing with histamines are made from two different things within the body, two different, what's the word I'm looking for, Steve? Yeah, I can't think. So one is the mast cell. So cells. Let's go with
cells. Yeah.
So mast cells and basophils, which are white blood cell. So these can produce histamine in response to something, which can happen when you consume beef. It tends to happen with aged beef or ground beef. So what I would do there is try to eat the beef not ground. Try to eat the beef that is fresh, or if you are having issues, try moving over to lamb. Lamb seems to cause less issues for most people, but these things do tend to go away. It seems to be an adaptation process. But I think looking at the username there, Zinc316, I'm sure that this person has been living a ketogenic or carnivore-based lifestyle for quite some time. But that's typically what it is. It's a reaction to the mast cells or basophils based on ground beef, usually. But it's try to eat fresh meat. And the other factor to this also is don't pour the rendered fat over your meat. So that's what I used to do when I was consuming ground beef. So I'd pour that fat on top because you see it in the pan and you think, well, I'm losing all of this fantastic fat. So I'd pour that over, and that would cause a histamine response for me, and a bad stomach, upset stomach with diarrhea and so on and so forth. So you don't need to pour the rendered fat back over. If you do want to eat it, wait until it goes hard. But the answer to this is just cook real beef. Chuck is my favorite. Chuck is half the price of rump. and it's called poor man's ribeye because it's the cut that's on the end of the ribeye. So it's basically ribeye with more fat. And what's the best part of the ribeye? Is the fat. So chuck, that's my tip of the day. Get out to your local butcher and buy some chuck.
Yeah, it's brilliant. The neurons in the brain also release histamine as a signaling molecule to release gastric acid. So that was what I did my honours part of my physiology and health science degree over. It was the somatosensory part of the brain. So I need to just remind people that if you want to get a Shakti mat, we talked about this in school, which is like an acupressure mat. There is a 30% thing off in school, but that runs out at midnight tonight. And I was going to explain to people how that works. It's a bit like a bed of nails, and how it works is when you hurt yourself somewhere, where you get a pain in the arm, for instance, something pricks you in the arm, a signal is what's called an ascending pathway signal goes up to the brain, and then you've got the homunculus, which is the somatosensory part, as I say, which has got this topographical map of your body, and it will say, something's, there's a needle or there's a knife hurting my arm, and then it sends a descending pathway signal down to modulate the pain and make it bearable, but also to alert the body that that's happening. So, sort of you rub your arm or you press it or whatever, wave it about if it's a circulatory problem. And this is how that Shakti mat works. It gets your body to produce natural endorphins, which is a contraction of endogenous morphine. So it's a direct demand-driven response, and it trains your body. So the first time you lie on the Shakti mat, you will think it's horrendous, and it will be very painful. But within about 6 weeks, if you do it every night for about 20 minutes, you'll be falling asleep on it. But the great thing is, if you have bad back, for instance, or if you have problems with your legs, for instance, you can put your legs on it, and it's amazing. It is amazing how it brings back to life a lot of the things where you've been having aches and pains. Totally natural thing. It's called a Shakti mat, Shakti, and it's on the school website if you want a link, and I'll put a link in the description to school in the description to this video. So do you know what? There's so many reasons, isn't there, to join school? And at the moment, it's only $4 a month. Right, so enough of that, because I sound like a salesman. I don't want to do that. Right, let's get rid of that banner at the bottom now, because I think we can go on to the next question. Do you think people with hypothyroidism should supplement with zinc, selenium, B12, and vitamin D? I'm supplementing just in case. I think that's a good list. I would also add iodine, but what do you reckon, Richard?
Yeah, look, cover all the bases through your dietary needs. And as you say, selenium and iodine are going to be preference because we need these to convert T4 into T3 in the whole process of making thyroid hormone. If you are living a ketogenic lifestyle, and if you are consuming things like broccoli or other cruciferous veg, remove those because they compete for absorption at the thyroid for iodine. So this can cause lots of problems. If you are carnivore, I should imagine that most of these are going to be covered. The selenium, fantastic supplement. B12, providing it's cobalamin. We want to avoid cyanocobalamin, so we want methylcobalamin. Vitamin D, yeah, I'm not against supplement with vitamin D. I think we can obtain it again naturally, but there are cases, one of which I'm working with from the States currently, that has a genetic defect that prevents that conversion of 25 hydroxyvitamin D into calcitriol, which is the active form. So yeah, that looks like a fantastic list, and as Stephen says, iodine potentially, but again, prevention is better than cure. If you are consuming any compounds that are blocking that absorption of iodine, such as broccoli or any other cruciferous veg, then we need to look at taking those away.
Excellent. We have a super chat from Sherry, by the way, and another question. I don't really understand it. Do you think orange ruffly with butter is as nutritious as a ribeye or lamb? Do you find lamb easier to digest versus other meats? Thank you.
Do you think orange ruffly is that?
I think it might be a typo, don't you?
Possibly, unless I know Sherry is based in the States, I believe. So is it an American thing potentially?
It's a fish. It's a fish.
Okay.
In America, I'd never heard of it. There you go.
Me neither.
There you go. Right.
Okay. Do you know? I feel awful for this, but I don't know because it's a fish that I'm unfamiliar with. What I would say, looking at the fish that I am familiar with, fish is highly nutrient dense, especially the oily fish, which isn't actually that oily, by the way, or fatty, but fish is a fantastic source of omega-3s. I don't know what the omega-3 ratio is in this. But that said, lamb is very high. Lamb fat is very high in omega-3s, way higher than ribeye. It's about 10 times higher omega-3s in lamb fat compared to beef fat. Butter, I think, is fantastic, but I don't use it. I don't use it because I don't add any fats to cooking. I tend to cook all of my food in its own juices. I put it into the pan. I put the lid on the pan. I fry that meat on a low temperature. Obviously, we don't want to elicit that acrylamide response. So I put the lid on. I keep it below 175, even if it takes a little bit longer. What happens is the pan fills with water. So there's less fat in there, but that keeps the steak incredibly moist. But, unsure, I've never looked at the nutritional profile for that fish, so I can't really say. But lamb is highly nutrient dense, arguably, in my opinion, and I believe Steve's also more nutritious than beef, better amino profile, and way better for the omega-3 profile also.
Yeah, it's a deep sea perch in the UK. Deep sea, as soon as you hear deep sea, of course, you're going to worry about mercury and poisoning like that, I think. But I'm not completely sold on that. It does depend where you get it from, I think. But yes, it seems okay nutritionally. It seems okay. Protein per 100 or 85 grams is near enough 20 grams, but it is very low in fat. Very, very low in fat. But I don't know what the EVA
So this is the reason. So this is the reason she's adding the butter, obviously. So
yeah.
I think.
Well,
go on.
Sorry, go on.
No,
carry on, mate. Go on.
After you.
I was just going to say, I actually typed that in orange roughly into Google, and it just gave me oranges. So it's not a very well-known phrase here, but maybe it is where you are. So I just found that quite interesting. So right, should we go on to the next thing?
Yeah, just one other thing. Look, Shuri, I think if you are consuming, animal proteins with natural fats, you're on a winner. If that's a dish that you want to throw in now and again, then I can't see it ever being a problem. And that's what I try to do with everything that I eat. Is it real food? Is it natural? Does it contain protein? Does it contain fat? So if that's the case, it's a box ticked for me.
Yeah. Right, here we go. Carney Goth. Any advice on Telegin, Elufium, hair loss, any aids, supplements, etc.? It's due to PTSD. I'm already carnivore. Well, with hair loss, sorry, Richard, you go first.
No, fire away.
Well, a lot of people recommend biotin. I don't know if that's been sort of suggested to you. And all the normal things like zinc, vitamin D, and iron are all good, and omega-3 fatty acids. Sometimes it's collagen as well is recommended. But I do think undereating is a big cause of it, and also not eating the right things. And I just want to get into this because I had one client that had a lot of GI distress, 30 years as a vegan, and they said they were eating enough protein. But also, you can measure how much of that protein is becoming tissue and how much is being wasted. And that's the flash term for that is bioavailability. So you could think that you're having a lot of protein, but if you're not, your stomach acid isn't where it should be, or your bile isn't where it should be, or your GI tract is, you've got leaky gut or something like that, you might not be absorbing as much protein as you think. So sometimes it's just not eating enough protein. Sometimes it is under eating, but I think it's one of those things where you can be quite mindful of, some of the tests you could do. You can do, a urine test. You can do some hair mineral testing and all that sort of stuff. But the problem with hair mineral testing is it is a snapshot. But I would definitely sort of focus on omega-3s, maybe biotin, and just making sure you're getting enough protein and fats.
Yeah, spot on, and that's exactly what I was going with the lack of eating. I think many people tend to consume one meal a day on carnivore or even ketogenic. Lack of those nutrients, as you say, is one of the biggest causes. Eat more. Try to, even if you need to force it. And as Stephen says, zinc is going to be fantastic for the absorption of those nutrients. but yeah, eat more food. I think it's that's a common thing within the keto community, isn't it? When someone gravitates into that and they start to prolong fasts and consume one meal a day. So definitely one to look at.
Yeah, wonderful chap here, Andrew Scarborough, who's a big supporter and a fantastic bloke, by the way. He's just read that orange roughly has the worst ecological ranking of any commercial fishery in the Best Fish Guide. All right, so there you go. Right. Okay.
Stick to the beef and lamb then.
Yes. Right. Question, which is from Wayne. Haven't taken a lipid panel in years, just had one done. Cholesterol 4, 130, triglycerides 77, HDL 65, VLDL 10, LDL 355. My wife thinks I'm crazy in regards to what? Having the test because your cholesterol is high. I mean, I'm gonna bore people with the same thing I do very often, week in, week out. Show you a study which we always present with this sort of thing, just very, very quickly. You can always email me and get this if you want, but it does say it all really. We'll go down just to the graph. Now, over 50% of people who have a heart attack and die have normal or low cholesterol. This is some data here where the hazard ratio of dying is 1 in 1, right? We're all going to die, which is why the 1 is where we start. Okay, most graphs start down at the 0, but we definitely will die at some point. These are what's called hard endpoints in science, which means they kicked the bucket. They definitely died, and then their cholesterol had been measured up until that point, and lower cholesterol nearly had a 2 times incidence. We can't say risk because that's a cause and effect statement. There was twice as many people dying with low cholesterol than there were with higher cholesterol. And here it is, LDL cholesterol. Well, LDL contains cholesterol. It's a low density lipoprotein. Even up to 300 LDL, the chances of dying were nowhere near as much as reducing it down from 120 down to 60, less than that. Okay, so, and the dotted lines are what's called confidence intervals. As you can see, as it gets lower, it very rarely gets better than 1. It's mostly higher. It goes up to almost 3. Whereas with the higher amount of cholesterol, there's even a chance that high cholesterol is protective. 70 years they've been trying to tell us that high LDL causes heart attack. 70 years. All started with feeding rabbits cholesterol. You know, because we know that rabbits in the wild do have a sort of egg and bacon breakfast. So it's the sort of thing they do eat. And it caused some problems. So that was me being sarcastic there. We also know that the Sugar Research Foundation bribed 2 Harvard researchers to say that fat was the problem with cardiovascular disease, not sugar. They were paid in the equivalent of $50,000, and that's public record. So this ridiculous theory about LDL and heart disease is, to me, quite laughable. That keeps getting pushed. But in your thing there, you've got triglycerides of 77, HDL 65. If we were going to be really picky, the best indicator for heart incidents like, heart attack or ischemia is having triglycerides that are slightly lower than HDL. That's it. That isn't a bad profile, to be honest. 77 triglycerides, HDL 65. If they were swapped round, I think that would be quite good. VLDL incident is a very good marker of whether you're fat adapted or not. If you are going to get into lipid panel, you could also look at particle size. You could get into big and fluffy or small and dense, but you're still looking at oxidized LDL and glycated LDL. So you're still talking about damage to those particles or those molecules. And it's not the low density lipoprotein that's the problem. It's other things, which has been proven time and time again. You don't get plaques where there's low pressure. You don't get any plaques in veins. Now, going around the circulatory system is a molecule called LDL with cholesterol in. It's the same cholesterol that's in an HDL. It goes all the way around. So it goes through the arteries, all through the vascular tree, all the way through the veins, and it doesn't cause plaque in the veins, this very dangerous cholesterol. It doesn't also cause any plaques where there's no bifurcation, which is where the arteries split. It's only where the bifurcation is. That's where you get plaques, but also it's turbulence in the blood flow because you haven't got laminar flow of the blood. So it seems to me it's more to do with high pressure, bifurcation. The fact that it is in an artery also has a little bit of a clue as to the fact that it's probably more thrombotic rather than something to do with low density lipoproteins, which aren't even cholesterol in the first place. But apart from that, you know, we'll have Richard chiming in, I'm sure. I had a little rant there. Sorry, Rich.
Yeah, spot on, and rightly so. I can see the next question. I think from yeah, because that follows on from the cholesterol. I'm very concerned if I'm not able to lower my cholesterol. I'm concerned if I can't raise my cholesterol.
Yeah, same here.
You don't want low cholesterol, contrary to popular belief, as Stephen says. It's essential. Cholesterol makes up every single cell within the body. It's essential for cell formation, cell communication, nutrient absorption, nutrient transportation, the production of hormones, and it's essential for healing. This is why when we become unwell, cholesterol goes to work and our cholesterol becomes lower. Now, there are things you can take to lower cholesterol. Vegetable oils, for example. This is why we're told to consume those. But vegetable oils,
Oreo cookies,
or exactly, which are high in vegetable oil. Yeah, Oreo, exactly. And in what world is an Oreo cookie good for health? It's just pure stupidity. Now, the reason for this is that the compounds from plants, they look so closely to human cholesterol that it competes and basically prevents the body from increasing cholesterol. So we artificially lower our cholesterol. But these are the plant compounds of cholesterol are the ones that cause issues such as sunburn and probably lead to cancer and so on and so forth. When we remove the plant sterols, we see an increase back to a normal physiological level. So it's not a case that our cholesterol is increasing. It's just a return back to a normal level. And I can prove this. So all you need to do is to Google a condition called cytosterolemia. Cytosterolemia. You look at that on any search engine and it will tell you that it is a condition that is inherited, but it's a condition in which that person cannot remove or excrete those plant sterols, and it leads to a massive increase in early onset cardiovascular disease caused by an accumulation of plant sterols. It's there in black and white. Raise your cholesterol. Steve, you muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Richard. I also had a question for you, which was on the school website. So, oxalate crystals, can they cause a burning sensation when urinating? Should I add lemon juice to water? And once in a while, I see reddish dried blood when urinating.
Yes, it is possible. Is it cyclical? So does it happen like once a month or once every 3 weeks and it disappears again? Because this tends to be the common motion of oxalate detox. It can happen. Lemon juice has been shown to help. I'm not against using that in the short term if you want to. Oxalate dumping or detox can last for many years. So this is something that you're probably going to want to combat via a different method, i.e. Using a potassium citrate. Potassium citrate has a high affinity to bind to oxalate, and it will lead to the excretion of that. And it should prevent harm. Drink more water. Now, this is something that Stephen and I always say not to do because it flushes out the electrolytes. But if you consume that potassium citrate from an electrolyte formula, then you can consume more water, and that's going to help with any damage. But if you are concerned, I mean, get a test. It's when it comes to anything of that nature, it could be an infection. It could be some sort of water infection. So it may be worth getting tested anyway. This is our health, for example. So it's, your health always comes first. So this is why I never quibble over spending something on a blood test or any other sort of test if it means that I have data to work with. But yeah, it is possible. Unfortunately, it's caused by a previous lifetime of consuming things like spinach and turmeric, for example, with compounds such as black pepper.
our friends. Right, let's have a look. So we have that brilliant question from Sherry. She also said she placed an order for Keto Pro on the 1st of September, but it's not received yet. Where do I go to track the order?
Ooh, so Sherry, you should have had an email with a tracking number in. It shouldn't be that long. What happens with the states is the states request prior notice. So when it gets into the country, I get asked to raise a prior notice. So that should have been done, but I will look at that for you. I will take a look.
Gaza, hello Gaza. It's saying here, if I drink something containing glycine using my trusty stainless steel straw so that my taste buds are sidestepped, will it confer a benefit without eliciting a insulin response? Well, good question.
Yeah, I'm not against glycine. So the thing when it comes to, so I'm guessing, Gaz, the reason you're asking is the methionine to glycine ratio, and the reason that this has reared its head is that when we overconsume, or not overconsume, but when we consume large amounts of meat, it contains methionine, and methionine is buffered by glycine, lowering the glycine in the body. But this is a fallacy. It's all you need to rectify this is consume some organ meats. But if you want to do it via glycine or via a collagen peptide, for example, then I've got no problems with that.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, we've got 5 minutes left, so let's see if we can get to the next question, which is about electrolyte supplements. Now, we normally rush, so I'm going to say it now. We do an extra 30 minutes in our school community straight after this. So if there's no questions to answer, we will start fresh with the ones in the school community. If we haven't answered your question yet, we'll try and answer it over there. All you got to do is click on the link that I've put in the chat. I'll do it again. And you can join school. Like I say, it's $4 a month. That's less than $1 a week. And you get 9 courses that you can do. There are free ebooks. There's just so much. A great community. It's very supportive. So, right, let's have a look at this. Can electrolyte supplements trigger anxiety? 17 days into carnivore from keto.
Yes, is the simple answer. It's usually to do with excessive amounts of sodium. And we rectify this with potassium, because potassium calms the heart, and it's this combination that leads to things like palpitations and that feeling of anxiety. I'd be curious to know which brand you're using. As you guys know, I make electrolytes. I don't know if you're using my brand, but it would be, if you could let me know, because the more data that we have, the better product that we can make. But that typically doesn't. So if you are consuming excessive amounts of sea salt or pink Himalayan and supplemented with electrolytes that is high in sodium and not an equal ratio to the potassium, then this could cause a problem. So you can remedy it from 2 ways: reduce the sodium or increase the potassium. There are lots of other factors going on with this as well. This is an incredibly simplistic answer. Normally with a client, we'd look into everything that they go through, drinks and water, the amount of fluid that they consume in, every piece of food that they consume, plus what they go through during the daily life, which is what you and I do. And that's how we make money, Steve, isn't it? We offer consultations. So Steve and I both offer consultations. And we'll pop the links for those in the show notes also. But this could take an entire hour and some to get into the weeds. So that is an incredibly short answer for an incredibly complex question. But I hope that helps.
I think it's fantastic. So yeah, I'd love some comments, because we're going over to school now, which we do every single Sunday night, 8 p.m. only for 30 minutes, but it's definitely worth it. There'll be some other people already over there who are members with questions. So very, very supportive community. And growing very quickly. So those prices, we can't hold that price for long, because we want it to stay reasonably small, but we also would like to be able to pay for the software. The platform's quite expensive to run. But anyway, Virginia has just joined. Thank you very much. So we might see you in a minute, which is really good. I was going to say one other thing, which has completely slipped my mind, but I wanted to also say well done on your time for your half marathon, Richard. It is really appreciated that you do this every single Sunday. As you've said, we both give our time for free. So that's why, on school, we try and make a little bit of money out of it. You can always super chat. If you're watching this on the playback after now, when we've just finished, please put stuff in the comments. Please like, please share, please subscribe to both our channels if you can, because otherwise we can't get the message out. And I tell you, I had a terrible message from YouTube, and it was just so upsetting, because we're trying our best and someone can flag you up and then they just basically take. Oh yes, sorry. Talk about your keto brain health very quickly.
It's not my keto brain health, but it's I am speaking there, so I've just put that in. Steve, you've got a discount code also. I've just put Pro in, which will give you a discount off your ticket. But that happens on this 12 days time. I've got it on the other screen. So that's the Keto Brain Health Conference. This is a fantastic conference. I'm speaking there. We've got Anthony Chaffee. We've got Zoe Harcoom, Rachel Brown. The Real Food Company are also going to be there. We've got Ivor Cummins. So some incredible speakers, but this is for absolutely everyone. This isn't an academic event, so you don't need to come and worry about not understanding the information. This is going to be incredibly simple and with actionable takeaways that you can go away and action. If you know everything and you know someone a family member, for example, who is concerned with things like dementia, cancer, or whatever it may be, type 2 diabetes, then gift them a ticket, get them to come. This is in Manchester, as I say, on October the 19th in 12 days' time. And you get to see me there, which is probably a reason not to come.
And I'll be there, by the way, with the film crew that we were talking about earlier. So it's all very exciting. Virginia, just email me at zerocarbcoach, all spelt out, not a number, zerocarbcoach@gmail.com for blood consultations. Thanks very much. We'll see you over at school. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you.